Welcome to the podcast. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about if you want to pivot or just start in pharma from being a graduate, what you need to post on LinkedIn in order to be seen by other people in the same industry and seen by hiring managers and build up a reputation as being somebody who is a thought leader, who knows what they're talking about, who's almost demonstrating live via LinkedIn that they understand the market, the role, and the situation around what they would be doing if they were to have that role in-house. And I think part of that is actually speaking on LinkedIn as if you already have that role. So that means what you post on LinkedIn is really the kind of considerations that you would have to be making on a daily basis if you were actually in that role in pharma. So I'm going to talk about a few examples, and there are some brilliant people on LinkedIn that I'll link in the show notes that are already doing a fantastic job of this. Now, if I was a PhD student or a graduate and I was looking to move straight into pharma or even into an adjacent industry like an agency or a contract research organization, then here's what I would do. So I'm a really big fan of learning in public. And what do I mean by that? I mean, somebody who decides that they want to, say, for example, work in regulatory affairs. So they decide to read up a lot about regulatory affairs, what's going on, all of the different agencies, for example, like the FDA, EMA, MHRA, maybe looking at unique pathways to get drug approvals for rare diseases, for example, some of the accelerated approval pathways, or any new updates. And I would talk about those on LinkedIn. So this is a great example. And there's a couple of really good examples of very junior people who are doing a great job of this on LinkedIn. They're basically reading up about, maybe they're looking at press releases, they're going on the FDA website, they're looking through guidance documents, all kinds of things. And they're really pulling out some learnings that they would need to know if they were in the job themselves. And they're actually critiquing and discussing and looking at what the implications might be for different companies and anyone who's looking to create a new molecular entity in that space or run some clinical trials. If I was a PhD student or a clinician and I was looking to pivot into medical affairs, I would be really talking about medical insights. So perhaps some high areas of unmet need that still have some question marks. So I would be talking about those kinds of things. I think if I was a clinician, I would also be talking about some of the misconceptions about certain diseases, whether that's on the patient side or the HCP side. So a couple of examples of this are around the value of a dementia diagnosis. That's a classic one that I always think about because there's a lot of misunderstanding. Well, there's nothing you can do. So why would you want a diagnosis when in actual fact, there are very well-established lifestyle modifications that you can do once you have that diagnosis. And also, many patients and families want a diagnosis because they know what they're working with and they can plan, whether that's care for their loved one or whether that's financial planning, all of those kinds of things. So there's a lot of misperceptions out there that you could focus on in some of your newsletters or posts on LinkedIn. Another example is around women's health. I mean, given that we're 50% of the population, we're so underrepresented in clinical trials and clinical research. There's lots of emerging research around hormones, particularly around autoimmune diseases and dementia, for example. So that's another one I think that's really, there's really so much data and research missing that could be a really good topic for discussion. Have a think about, if I was an MSL, I would speak to HCPs about this. I would ask them these questions, because especially if you're coming from a clinical background, then you understand that side of it, but maybe the MSL side of it would be new to you. If you were looking to go into market access, then I would look at some of the HTAs. So, for example, I would look at NICE. There's been some changes to some of the NICE pathways. A quick Google search and you can identify the different HTA bodies across the world and just have a look at them and see how they compare advantages and disadvantages with certain ones. So I think that's something you could do. You're learning about something, and then as soon as you learn about it, you're sharing it because you're then one step ahead of another candidate, for example, with the same qualifications as you. And for those who are interested in commercial roles, maybe pivoting from agency, for example, then maybe some hot topics I think that are coming up are around AI and the use of AI and how it could save money potentially. Also, I think another key topic really on the commercial side is around how to make sure that we're authentic when we're speaking to patients. So anything that really enhances the patient voice and makes sure that the patient voice is heard. And I think for any of the roles, if you're a good storyteller, if you can really analyze those data, interpret them, and then reshare them in a way that's easy to understand and shows that you've really thought about, okay, what's the so what from this trial? What does this mean for patients? What does this mean for HCPs? Maybe even think about it in terms of the quadruple aims so that you're looking at it in terms of what it means for the patients, what it means for society, what it means for HCPs in terms of their time, what it means for healthcare systems in terms of cost. So I've been doing a bit of an experiment as well. And in terms of LinkedIn engagement, the posts that really resonate are actually surprising ones. They're not highly technical. They're not necessarily topics that you would think people would be really interested in, like AI. The posts where I had a lot of engagement and a high number of impressions, especially for this industry, which is quite niche, were surprising posts. They were posts about things like me having purple hair in corporate and being my authentic self, a post about expats in Switzerland and the difficulties that they face in the job market, posts that were really about something deeply personal that was connected in some way to the work that I'm trying to do with in terms of pharma and biotech careers. So I guess what I'm saying is whatever you choose, it needs to be something that you can connect a personal story to, because I think that always helps posts to resonate. Otherwise, especially with AI taking over writing posts, I think if you can add an overlay of your own personal story into things, that brings something a little bit different. And, LinkedIn's like Instagram, it's like TikTok in that respect. It's like any social media platform involving humans, a human story really resonates. So whatever you do, think about something that you're really passionate about, that you can continue posting, that you can stay consistent with. Ideally, you just pick an interval, whether that's once a month you're going to post. Just try to be fairly consistent in the timing and posting of that. Choose something that you're passionate about that you can stick with, add in a personal story to it. And I think all of that will help you to build up that following, build up that network on LinkedIn. And I'm wishing you the best of luck with your LinkedIn journey. As always, connect with me, drop me a comment. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you really enjoyed this episode and you want to hear more.